What's good? Osiris here. Pop up live. Merrick Garland will be speaking soon. I think I might have heard something. Did he? Nope, I did not hear anything. I'm very interested in hearing what Mr. Garland has to say for himself. So I'll be hanging out. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Pop up surprise live. Don't know how long I'll be on. We'll see how long it takes for him to get on. He's supposed to be making a statement today, and we'll see. I think he was supposed to be, the statement was supposed to be made, he was supposed to already be speaking right now, so we'll hear. We'll see what he has to say. I'm very interested. I think this topic, we are still in the topic of the raid. I think the raid is really the issue. I know they're talking about the National Archives, and it's not even really about that. And we have to see what they're looking for. It would have to be something extremely serious to justify. Okay, so I just want to make sure that my stream was all the way live. It is all the way live. We'll see how this goes here. While we're waiting, I did do a thread yesterday I want to go through. And this thread is about this Newsweek article. So I might start that thread while we're waiting here.
Good afternoon.
Oh, here we go.
Since I became Attorney General, I have made clear that the Department of Justice will speak through its court filings and its work. Just now, the Justice Department has filed a motion in the Southern District of Florida to unseal a search warrant and property receipt relating to a court-approved search that the FBI conducted earlier this week. That search was of premises located in Florida belonging to the former president. The department did not make any public statements on the day of the search. The former president publicly confirmed the search that evening, as is his right. Copies of both the warrant and the FBI property receipt were provided on the day of the search to the former president's counsel, who was on site during the search. The search warrant was authorized by a federal court upon the required finding of probable cause. The property receipt is a document that federal law requires law enforcement agents to leave with the property owner. The department filed the motion to make public the warrant and receipt in light of the former president's public confirmation of the search, the surrounding circumstances, and the substantial public interest in this matter. Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing. All Americans are entitled to the even-handed application of the law, to due process of the law, and to the presumption of innocence. Much of our work is by necessity conducted out of the public eye. We do that to protect the constitutional rights of all Americans and to protect the integrity of our investigations. Federal law, long-standing department rules, and our ethical obligations prevent me from providing further details as to the basis of the search at this time. There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken. Third, let me address recent unfounded attacks on the professionalism of the FBI and Justice Department agents and prosecutors. I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked. The men and women of the FBI and the Justice Department are dedicated, patriotic public servants. Every day, they protect the American people from violent crime, terrorism, and other threats to their safety while safeguarding our civil rights. They do so at great personal sacrifice and risk to themselves. I am honored to work alongside them. This is all I can say right now. More information will be made available in the appropriate way and at the appropriate time.
Nah.
Thank you.
Nah, bruh. That's not.
FBI agents, thank you all for your questions.
Nah,
As I said,
bruh.
this is all I can say at this time.
Nah, bro, that's so what they did, he had a press conference just to say he had a press conference. He did not say anything in the press conference that we did not know through rumor or fact already. He said that the Trump lawyer was on site. Trump lawyer never said they weren't on site. They said they didn't see what was happening during the search. So no one, is there a camera? Is there, like, how do we know what happened during the search? So you're leaving room for all this question. So we need more answers. I'm not saying anything definitively. There's a lot of allegations. I don't know what happened. That's why this bro needs to get up on a podium and answer some questions. Why do you look like a deer in the headlight? Like, this dude, man, something's got to. I think people are underestimating. I got to reiterate, because they're already doing this gaslighting. There's I don't know what this incident is in Cincinnati, I believe it is. I don't know what that is. Number one, there is nothing coming out of my mouth that is not going to be peaceful, period. And if you're not with that, then you just leave the chat. I have nothing against you, but I won't be entertaining that. It's very serious right now, because they're trying to just like J6, they're trying to gaslight to get you into this. Oh, you support this, or you're asking questions. Oh, are this or that? Do you need to be ostracized? No, I'm not playing those games with you. I have peaceful response and questions and suggestions. Let me go through this thread. That press conference wasn't that deal. I don't know what that was. I mean, how long was it? Was that the press conference? What was the point of that? Why didn't you just release a statement? I don't know why they even got up on the podium for that. It's literally the definition of gaslighting. Let me show you some things that I have a thread where I'm kind of archiving this stuff so I can reference it quickly. Christopher Wray, director of the FBI, straight up gaslighting. He did the same type of thing. He was in Omaha. Wray was in Omaha last night, and someone asked him about it. Take a look at the body language, the mannerism. Man, this body language that I'm seeing from these guys. Whoa. Whoa. I'm going to put this here on the screen. I want you to tell me, what does his body language show to you? It's not a fact, it's just opinion. What is this? Bruh. This is the most serious action that has ever happened from the federal government since the 1860s. That's how serious this is. This is not a game anymore. It never was. But this isn't like the little banter back and forth and Trump's like, oh, my hand size is bigger than yours and that kind of stuff. This is very, very serious stuff we're talking about right now. People are underplaying this, and hope maybe they are, because they know how serious it is, and they're just like, I want to be peaceful. I can talk about how serious it is and be peaceful. I don't know why there would be a problem with that. Bro, your face doesn't look right. That doesn't look right. I'm gonna play what he said here in Omaha last night. This is the FBI Director Christopher Wray.
Former President Trump is raising the prospect of agents planting evidence in the FBI search of his residence in Mar-a-Lago, saying his lawyers may have allowed him to observe the search. Can you address that, particularly as many of Mr. Trump's supporters online issued the so-called call to arms and threats against your agents in light of the search?
Well, as I'm sure you can appreciate, that's not something that I can talk about, so I'd refer you to the department. As to the issue of threats, I will say that I'm always concerned about violence and threats of violence.
So you take a look at the body language. She's asking about the raid, and look at his body language and tone.
His lawyers may have allowed him to observe the search. Can you address that, particularly as many of Mr. Trump's supporters online issued the so-called?
And listen to how the question's phrased. Many of Trump's supporters. Yeah, that is true, but number one, this ain't about Trump. I keep saying that. They keep trying to make it about Trump. It's not about Trump. If Trump got hemmed up, it didn't change I don't want to see anybody wrongfully hemmed up. I'm just saying that's not a thing. That's not a part of this issue. It's about the disrespect. It's about the J6ers. It's about common people being ostracized. It had nothing to do with Trump. I don't know Trump. Nothing to do with Trump at all.
Call to arms and threats against your agents in light of the search.
Well, as I'm sure you can appreciate, that's not something that I can talk about.
So just like, nothing I can talk about. Now listen to his voice pick up a little bit of energy when he's like, oh, I can talk about these other things though.
I'd refer you to the department. As to the issue of threats.
There's a little bit of bass in your voice as the issue of threats. I'm not for any threats, of course. That's ridiculous. But if you're not going to speak on the issue, then bro, just don't speak on the issue. We don't need. Of course, we all denounce threats. Nobody wants to see that. We're all denouncing that. We don't need your voice. We don't need to hear bass in your voice over that.
As to the issue of threats, I will say that I'm always concerned about violence and threats of violence against law enforcement, and that is a topic that I have been talking about frequently, including earlier today with law enforcement partners here in Nebraska, and yesterday with law enforcement partners in Iowa and Illinois.
And I have to go back, and I have not heard this whole press conference. I for sure hope somebody followed up and said, you're working with who? What did you say? What does that mean?
Frequently, including earlier today with law enforcement partners here in Nebraska, and yesterday with law enforcement partners in Iowa and Illinois.
Law enforcement partners sounds to me like state and local level. You wouldn't say law enforcement partners when you're talking about your own bureau of investigation offices, field offices. You're working with them on what? We need to work on some answers.
Enforcement partners here in Nebraska, and yesterday with law enforcement partners in Iowa and Illinois, and any threats made against law enforcement, including the men and women of the FBI, as with any law enforcement agency, are deplorable and dangerous.
Thank you.
Brian Mastery, WOWT.
Good afternoon, Director. Kind of along Marjorie's point, how concerned are you that after the raid, that could embolden, maybe even incentivize some of the same bad actors from January 6th?
You hear that question from the media? That's their question for him. Embolden the same actors from J6. What? That's everything that's happening right now. That's what you're talking about? If you don't know what gaslighting is, this is literally the definition. I'm sorry, y'all. That's not going to work. You're going to have to go do some false flag opera. That ain't working.
Doing something similar.
Again, violence against law enforcement is not the answer, no matter what anybody's upset about or who they're upset.
Did they even say anything like this during the Summer of Love? I remember, AG Bill Barr, they sent, so there was tension between the local area states for Trump and the DOJ to send. They were sending in FBI agents undercover and scooping them up in vans. And the local areas were saying, we're not cooperating, we didn't want it. And in secret, I think they did want it because they couldn't control what was going on. But publicly, they were saying, we don't want you here. We're coming to a serious spot. I'm going to go on a thread here, a little bit of a rant type thread.
And I think we have in this country had over the last few years an alarming rise in violence against law enforcement. Last year, there were 73 law enforcement officers around this country who were killed in the line of duty, as in murdered in the line of duty. It's the highest number since 9/11. So the men and women of law enforcement, including the men and women of the FBI, make heroic sacrifices for everyone in this country. And it takes an incredibly special person to be willing to get up every day and give his or her life, sacrifice his or her life for a total stranger. And so it's important that we...
Okay, that's enough of that. So that was the gaslighting. This Newsweek, if you have not read this Newsweek article, I am doing a lot of this stuff on Twitter because Twitter has the threads. It's pretty easy to kind of break it through. This Newsweek article is bonkers. This was from yesterday. William M. Arkin. An anonymous senior Justice Department source claimed that the highest figure in the executive branch that approved an unprecedented raid on a former president, political enemy, and potential future candidate was the FBI director. You heard Merrick Garland talk about he approved the warrant. He didn't say anything about the raid. So he's saying, I approved the warrant. He didn't comment. Notice in this 2-second press conference, he did not comment on the raid. So basically he's saying, well, the raid stuff and logistics are left up to the FBI. When you're talking about Donald Trump in Florida, it ain't left up to the FBI director. It needs to go all the way up to the head honcho. And the fact that the rumors are Biden hasn't said a damn thing about this is that they didn't know. So Merrick Garland has not said he knew anything about the details of the raid. He's just saying that they approved the warrant. And he's going to say, well, of course, if I prove the warrant, then I'm going to leave it up to raid to go do the raid. If there was something here to justify it, they're not acting like it. This is not exerting trust and confidence in the system. And I've been trying to chat with people, and they're telling me what a governor can or can't do. A governor can do whatever the hell they want to do or whatever they have the political power in their state to do. The judicial branch doesn't have any enforcement arm. So you can say, well, the FBI has the right to do this, whether it's the supremacy clause or whatever it is, to come in and do something. Well, that's not enforced by the judicial branch. So my point is, if the executive branch of the federal government comes into a state and the executive branch of the state and that federal government don't see eye to eye, we have a serious problem. So we all need to start getting on the same page. That had nothing to do with Trump. So they said Garland had no prior, this is a rumor from this Newsweek article, that Garland had no prior knowledge of the date and time. So notice how specific they are. They're not saying he didn't know anything about the warrant. Of course he knew the warrant. He would have to be immediately fired if he didn't know about the prosecutors that report to him going to this magistrate judge to get the warrant signed. Of course he knew that, but they're saying that he had no knowledge of the date and raid. So he knew this. It sounds like he knew there was going to be a raid, but didn't know the date and time. Why they're separating things is because one of my questions is, why didn't Merrick Garland call DeSantis? Why didn't Joe Biden call DeSantis and give a heads up? Did they have to? I guess not, but now here we are. if you want to maintain some credibility, you do. Allegedly, this raid was based largely on information from one identified person. There's a clip going around right now about this unidentified person, and it seems to be, common sense. You don't need anybody to say it, but if you don't want to listen to some random dude in his basement, we've got the chief of staff, former chief of staff to Trump, Mick Mulvaney, and he talked about it. So let me clip that here real quick. Very short clip, but he said, obviously, it looks like it has to be somebody who's close to Trump.
That we've taken. He could do that. The FBI could also release the affidavit that they gave to the court in order to obtain the search warrant. And my point, and a lot of other Republicans' point, is that when the FBI has the track record it has in the recent past about dealing with Republicans, the burden is on them to show that they are absolutely on the up and up, and releasing that affidavit is something they can and should do.
How close do you think that person in Trump's orbit would have had to be to know these details about where these documents were? That's a good question. Really close. I didn't even know there was a safe at Mar-a-Lago, and I was the chief of staff for 15 months. So this would be someone who was handling things on day-to-day, who knew where documents were. So that would be somebody very close inside the president. My guess is there's probably 6 or 8 people who had that kind of information. I don't know the people on the inside circle these days, so I can't give any names of folks who come to mind. But your instinct, I think, is a good one, is that if you know where the safe is and you know the documents are in 10 boxes in the basement, you are pretty close to the president.
So that's a comment on this exact story that said that there was somebody who was close to the story, this unidentified person. The raid on Mar-a-Lago was based largely on information from an FBI confidential human source, one who was able to identify what classified documents former President Trump was still hiding, and even the location of those documents. So that was the big meat of it. Allegedly, so this is pretty solid stuff, but I have to say allegedly because it's only through rumor. It's unconfirmed, but I mean, we know this is pretty much solid information, and this is Newsweek, not me reporting it. Allegedly, a federal grand jury began deliberations in April. So this is the link from the article. In late April, the source says a federal grand jury began deliberating whether there was a violation of the Presidential Records Act or whether President Trump violated the law, basically. Now, these federal grand juries, I mean, there's a saying that, not from me, from all these lawyers, it's like the federal grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. They'll just say whatever. Because if you're doing a federal grand jury, it's so serious, it would have to be so egregious for them to say, nah, that's not enough. So this is from a lower level prosecutor going to getting a grand jury and then going to this magistrate. Allegedly, the grand jury concluded there was a violation of the law, and then they went to this magistrate. That's it. That's all it was for a former president to spark something that you knew. Whether you think people are right or wrong to be concerned or upset about it, you knew that would happen. So you would want more than that. You would want Merrick Garland involved. You would want Biden. If Biden can't get involved with it, it shouldn't go down. Biden doesn't want to get involved with it. He wants to be like, I'm distanced from that. He can't be. Still hasn't said anything about it. Not one word. You don't have to talk about the details of the case. You can come in front of the country. Like, you don't even have to talk about the details of the case. You can come in front of the country and say, I acknowledge here, I know what happened. Here's what I'm not involved in it, but here's my message to the country. You can say whatever you want, like, let's hear it out, let's wait. We want peace. You could have a general message of, we're heading into a midterms, things are getting crazy. I want peace, calm. I'm not the one to say it. I'm not a speech writer. But to say that Biden can't speak is ridiculous. How could this, one of the craziest things since 1860, unprecedented, never happened, period, in the history of the country. But since 1860, when the craziest things happened, and he hadn't said one word about it. That's some other stuff, man. That's something crazy. One of the sources said the FBI decision makers thought they could, this is how bumbling and stupid they are allegedly by this person, that they thought they could lower the profile of the raid. Like it wasn't going to be a big deal. FBI decision makers in Washington and Miami thought that denying the former president a photo opportunity, so waiting till he wasn't there, or a platform from which to grandstand, what, you're going to block the whole internet? Even if you took down Truth Social, he could have got a video out. To lower the profile of the event, says one of the sources, a senior Justice Department official who was a 30-year veteran of the FBI. So they're saying, oh, yeah, we thought it was going to be a low-profile thing because we're going to wait for him not to be there. They had to acknowledge it was a spectacular backfire, this source said. They wanted to punctuate the fact that this was a routine law enforcement action. Going after a former president who's kind of a mascot for the populist right is a routine law enforcement action off of some National Archive stuff. Actually, from a law, to my knowledge, it's a law that Donald Trump signed. Kind of seemed like it was in regards to the Hillary Clinton email stuff. So I'm not going to knock Trump for that. They'll use any law against him. It doesn't matter if he signed it or who signed it. Patriot Act, it was already used against them. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. I said it's been days. Now we heard from, see, that's why Merrick Garland did it, because I tweeted this last night. I was like, it's been days. Biden hasn't said anything. Merrick Garland hasn't said anything. Wray hasn't said anything. They haven't even cared to say a word. Merrick Garland didn't do, he literally didn't give you any more information than I just gave you right now. So now he can say, well, yeah, I did say something. No, I'm not. That's not good enough. Now I'm going to get into where's DeSantis, and then I'm going to be out. Where's Ron DeSantis? Have you heard from him? I don't want to hear anything about license plates in Florida right now. I know this might take time. I know he made a Twitter statement or whatever. I haven't heard from him since that. And that statement brought up the IRS stuff. Man, this is way different than the IRS stuff. Reportedly, Palm Beach, this is the local police, were on the scene as the feds rolled up. I was chatting with people online, and I was like, the feds have to alert the local authorities, period. They have to, you can't just have whatever number of unmarked black SUVs and rider rental trucks filled with 3 dozen FBI agents roll up on Mar-a-Lago and the local officials don't know. Do you think that's going to go well? They had to call the Secret Service, and then they had to tell the local officials at some point. This is from the article. A convoy of unmarked black SUVs and a rider rental truck filled with about 3 dozen FBI special agents and technicians entered the gates in the early evening. Heavily armed Secret Service agents were also visibly present at the gates. The Palm Beach Police Department was also present at the scene. They made it sound like it was in the morning. Early, let me see. I thought this was the morning. Maybe I'm wrong here. A convoy of unmarked black SUVs and a rider truck filled with about 3 dozen special agents and technicians entered the gates in the early evening. So I'm unclear on when the Palm, I don't know. That we need to have those questions. I thought it was the morning, but I could be wrong. The Palm Beach Police Department tweeted, the Palm Beach Police Department was not aware of the existence of a search warrant, nor did our department assist the FBI in execution of a search warrant. They had to mention that. They had to mention that because it's like, well, what did you help? Did you like make sure nobody came and saw, or like, were you there? What did you do? So they're distancing themselves from the FBI. How is your relationship with the FBI? Are you disappointed that POTUS, DOJ, FBI didn't communicate? That's my question for Palm Beach. Palm Beach says that we maintain a good relationship with the FBI. Why? However, I'm still talking about peace, but I'm just saying, why is there not tension there? Or at least saying, well, what happened? However, we are disappointed by their lack of communication. So if you're disappointed by their lack of communication, then what is really the relationship? How is your relationship? Are you disappointed that POTUS, DOJ, FBI didn't communicate? This is really, I'm heading this at Ron DeSantis now. Because Palm Beach is just a local. I mean, I'm not going at them at this. How's your relationship with FBI, Ron DeSantis? Are you disappointed that POTUS, DOJ, FBI didn't communicate, Ron DeSantis? When did you find out, Mr. DeSantis? Whom informed you, Mr. DeSantis? What did you do after you found out, Mr. DeSantis? Why should citizens in your state have faith in these institutions, Mr. DeSantis? Do you have faith in these institutions, Mr. DeSantis? Those are all questions that I hope they're legitimate questions. Because here's my takeaway, and I'm going to be out. People are like, well, what do you want DeSantis to do? I don't know. I'm not the governor. But here's what I would say. People are losing faith in the institutions. Once you lose faith in the institutions, the whole thing can't stand up. The governors have to get together, and they have to demand transparency from POTUS. I don't know if they write a letter. And the letter is an ultimatum. We need transparency from POTUS, DOJ, FBI. They are the lawyers. They know what questions could be answered and not answered without affecting an ongoing investigation. These are the questions we need to have answered for transparency. We're concerned about people's faith in the right or wrong. Faith is being, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. The faith is being eroded, and we need to restore it quickly. So we need you to be more transparent about what's happening. Trump can release the warrant. So if Trump can release it, he doesn't want to, and I don't blame him. It's on you. Y'all went for the warrant. So we need this transparency without interfering with whatever the investigation is. And the ultimatum is, if we can't get an answer by this date, then the federal FBI, all y'all, leave the state until we can get an answer. That's how serious this is. Let me know what you think. Take care.